Hello, my name is Libby Hoe, and I'm eager to share with you 3 personal artifacts that I believe encapsulate the journey I am embarking to greater develop my understanding and approach to working with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. As an emerging educator, these artifacts symbolize the importance of my intertwining personal experiences in my ongoing process of unlearning and relearning the best possible approaches to providing a high-quality educational experience to all First Nation learners. The first artefact I'd like to introduce is a map of Kingston upon Hull, England. This is my place of origin. This map symbolises my personal journey, having emigrated to Australia at age 10. Growing up in a small town in England significantly shaped my worldview, offering a little exposure into Australian Indigenous culture and heritage. The borders around this map symbolise the narrow worldview I was afforded as a child, acting as a tangible barrier placed upon me by my small town education. Transitioning into high school in Australia, I gained my first insight into Indigenous heritage and culture through history classes, which, unbeknownst to me, were deeply rooted in incredibly Eurocentric perspectives. Through my years in university education, I have come to understand that being an advocate for learning of First Nations Australians requires a deep knowledge of their complex history, customs, and traditions. As a future history educator, university has led me to understand the magnitude of the heartbreaking and complex history between the invasion and early history of European settlers arriving on Australian soil. I was most shocked to learn of the formation of the Australian Native Police Force in 1830s, which consisted of Indigenous men led by a white officer who were coerced and forced to join, then given orders to provide suppressive and often lethal force against other Indigenous resistance to European colonisation. The Native Police Force was employed during the many frontier massacres of First Nation Australians, most notably the Kalkadoon Wars of 1884 in Cloncurry, Queensland. Frontier violence, massacres, displacement, and the dispossession of land and traditional cultural practices are directly linked to the rippling effect of intergenerational trauma that grips and continues to grip Aboriginal communities. This is the part of Australian history that I wish to expose in my future role as an educator, and my artefact demonstrates my commitment to ensuring that my students, unlike myself, know the true stories of our First Nation peoples. My second artefact is an image of a boomerang in a souvenir shop. The boomerang is an object that we encounter regularly and embody a canvas of Aboriginal history and identity. The boomerang is arguably the most widespread motif of Aboriginal representation and therefore often used in educational settings. This is why it is crucial to critically assess how their representation aligns with respectful portrayals of Indigenous peoples. When critically reflecting on the boomerang from a souvenir shop, it raises the issues of legitimacy and distortion of cultural narratives, as often these boomerangs are not created by Indigenous artists. The globalisation of the symbolic use of the boomerang in Australia occurred alongside the marginalisation of Aboriginal peoples themselves, enforcing the idea that Aboriginal symbol is being used to push the idea of the European Australianness rather than Aboriginality. In the classroom, I can apply this learning and analysis to identify and challenge the stereotypes surrounding representations of Aboriginal Australians, such as teaching my students that there's actually no one shape that a boomerang can be, and Indigenous tribes from all over Australia geographical regions made and used boomerangs differently beyond their well-known throw and return hunting function. This boomerang ultimately serves as a reminder of the importance and awareness surrounding representation, not only of tools like the boomerang, but also in broader discussions on Indigenous representations through educational landscapes. As an educator, I will ensure that my teaching resources and supporting materials are culturally sensitive, leveraging this awareness to choose inclusive and respectful teaching resources. My third artefact are the fervent notes I took during a presentation by an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisation called BANAM, Applied Cultural Intelligence. This enlightening workshop experience during my last placement delved into the foundations of traditional Indigenous culture and equipped educators with practical knowledge and skills for cross-cultural competence. My notes encapsulate invaluable insights from a First Nation perspective on the mutually beneficial exchange of knowledge between Aboriginal students and their teachers. The presenters reframed my perspectives on Indigenous students, emphasising how their community structures influence their optimal learning conditions. Maintaining high-quality relationships with all students is paramount to me, and is understanding that delving into their backgrounds and experiences is key to providing them a good quality and tailored learning experience. These notes mark the first time I was exposed to concrete strategies and solutions from the perspective of a First Nation Australian who had struggled through their own schooling on how to provide good quality education to the future of First Nations Australians. One such strategy, as highlighted in my notes, speaks on the predisposition that Indigenous students may have regarding the avoidance of direct conflict and how that's rooted in their intense and tight-knit communities. This avoidance may contribute to truancy or avoidance behavioural issues. The solution they provided directly links to the value of respecting and knowing the knowledge that these students bring and how this will ultimately foster a strong, high-quality relationship, positioning educators as understanding and informed figures in their lives. To be a good quality educator is to be equitable. An equitable approach to teaching resists the deficit discourse and stereotyping that is present within the field. This artifact aligns closely with my personal develop as it underscores the significance of acknowledging Indigenous students as competent knowledge producers. This recognition not only enhances teaching effectiveness, but also broadens communication and engagement with the broader community, echoing the importance of an equitable approach that incorporates Aboriginal Australian culture and heritage. The three artifacts I have presented to you today collectively reflect my own journey towards developing a deeper understanding and a more informed approach to working with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. These artifacts embody a culture of power and consciousness that will serve as a compass in navigating the complexities of representations and fostering reciprocal knowledge-building relationships with First Nation students and in turn their wider communities. The self-work that is symbolised in these artefacts is a continuous journey of mine that aims to contribute to the planting of the seeds of resurgence and healing for future generations. I hope to foster a thoughtful and culturally responsive educational environment in my own classroom for this to happen in. Thank you.